Well, hi, everyone. Welcome. Appreciate you showing up. Before I start to take questions, which I'm happy to do in just a moment, I guess I wanted to relate a little bit about some of my own struggles with understanding this practice of Zen. Right now, I'm on a koan. I do koans with Genpo Roshi, and there's a kind of a two-part koan or one right after the other, but the first one just says form is emptiness, and the second one says emptiness is form. And I have no idea how to present this koan, but I'm going to stick with it. But I remembered that form is emptiness and emptiness is form is, of course, a famous Zen saying, and that it's discussed in what we call the Heart Sutra, which actually is a short sutra that is chanted every day in Buddhist temples throughout the world, regardless of whether they're Zen or Theravadan or Shingon or all sorts of, in Tibet, everywhere. It's a very, very famous short sutra, and it's a part of a much larger sutra called the Prajnaparamita Sutra. Prajnaparamita means perfection of wisdom, and this is the heart of that larger sutra. That's why it's called the Heart Sutra, not because it's about your heart. And basically, as many of these earlier sutras, and it's 2,000 years old or more, I guess. Actually, it's happened during the time of the Buddha, so 2,500 years ago. And like many of the sutras, it's a bit of a conversation or a teaching between either the Buddha or some other entity, and written in kind of the classic form. And this particular one involves two characters, one Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva and Shariputra. So to give you a little background, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva is the Bodhisattva of compassion, and is embodied in both male and female forms, and is known in China as Kuan Yin, and known in Japanese as Kanzeon. And of course, we're Kanzeon Sangha. So it kind of relates that way, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And then Shariputra he and his friend Madgalyana were the first two disciples of the Buddha, according to legend. And they were both very advanced students, but Shariputra shows up in many of the sutras, and is a very advanced student, but still stuck in dualistic thinking. And so in the Heart Sutra, which I'm just going to read a little bit of, he's asked some kind of a question, undoubtedly from a dualistic perspective, and Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva happens to be the teacher there that day. And so the Heart Sutra, which we chant, starts out saying, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, doing deep Prajnaparamita, which is a meditation on wisdom, clearly saw emptiness in all the five conditions, thus completely relieving all misfortune and pain. Now, that's a pretty potent statement. And it points to the student that if you see emptiness, you will relieve all misfortune and pain. That's quite a claim, and something to be thought about and penetrated. So then he goes on to say, oh, Shariputra, probably in that kind of a voice. Oh, Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness, and emptiness exactly form. So here I am on this koan, and I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to see, and how am I supposed to see it? And I can relate to Shariputra because I ask my questions of Khenpo Roshi in the same kind of probably dualistic way. And he lays out these things before me to get, and I try to get them. So Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, doing deep prajna paramita is a bit of a clue that I should do the same in order to see this. And so I need to continue my meditation practice, but where do I go with it? So I thought I'd just open up the table here for questions about this, and see if anybody can tell me what form is emptiness means, and what emptiness is form means, and that it's exactly the same. And wow, is this really our path to enlightenment and the relief of all misfortune and pain? Okay, anybody? Chad.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bruce, thanks for sharing like where you're at. That's really cool. And I don't have anything for you, but I think it's really great that you're sharing this. So I've always really liked the Heart Sutra, and I've never gravitated towards that phrase particularly, but I'm glad you're bringing it out because, wow, misfortune and pain, that's a thing. So yeah, it's a thing. But yeah, I just want to say thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Chet. Yeah, it is a thing. And of course, the Buddha, I don't know why he was 25 years old or something when he started his quest. And his quest was not for enlightenment, but to find the cause of suffering so that he could relieve misfortune and pain. And he apparently saw these same things and, taught all about that. And so we had the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all these ways that we're supposed to, practice in order to see this. So that's what we're here to do. And part of it is, the reason I wanted to read this way and kind of in plain English is because, some of the literature is a bit full of imagery and subtle sort of things that are, you have to kind of learn Chinese or Japanese to get. But I think if we just look plainly at this, form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. That's pretty interesting. Jane, what do you got, Jane?
I mean, this is probably comical. I mean, I have no idea, but what came up for me, I had this image of form arising out of emptiness and form dissolving back into emptiness, that sort of infinite, endless cycle. And I mean, that's just what came up for me when you said that.
Yeah, I went to the same place with that, but then I got stuck on where he says form is exactly emptiness and emptiness is exactly form. So one is not going into the other or changing.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Right. So it's an interesting part of that. Now,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, what came up for me when you said that was just, they become one. That I don't know. I'm by no means a highly evolved practitioner. So
yeah, well, me either. Or else I'd be able to sit and figure it out for you. But yeah, saying form is exactly emptiness. Emptiness is exactly form. I have a friend and I who've discussed this, and of course he says, well, form is we're all made of atoms and subatomic particles, and those become molecules, and there's chemistry and evolution and all this stuff. And I said, well, I think that's all true, but what's the emptiness part, And of course, in Buddhism, they say because it's all constantly changing, that these forms are just manifestations. That gave me a bit of a clue about that. But I don't know. Let's keep talking about it.
No, it's really fun. Know that. I feel like as you talk, I just sort of started to kind of think about the cosmos and being in all that empty space, and yet there are planets and solar systems, and there's emptiness, but there's form, and it's the entire cosmos is like that, including us. That's for what it's worth.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Thanks for bringing it up. It's really intriguing.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jane. Michael Parrish.
Hey, thanks for having this.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I was being silly for a second. I was like, well, if emptiness is formed, then I can say I'm a super advanced practitioner, and it's just as true as the opposite. Anyway, no, what real world stuff for me is I have this relationship with a non-relationship with my 18-year-old daughter, with the same mom as my relationship with my son, with whom I have a great relationship. And it's been 5 years that I've not had contact with my daughter, same mom. And she just turned 18. And I always thought, I wonder how I'm going to feel when she turns 18, because she'll be a legal, adult. She'll have something to say. Who knows what's going to happen. So I've been setting myself up for this. This is, I guess, like a koan practice. Like, what am I going to feel? And how would I respond, and all this kind of stuff that I have no idea, and still don't know. But the only thing that I have, and I'm told absolutely nothing about her. It's just this way these things are put together. But I have a few pictures. Pictures pop up on my phone from time to time of when she's much younger. And then I ask a friend, would you just go on the page and just show me some pictures? I just want to see how I feel about these pictures. Just show me some pictures. So I look at these pictures, and I've spent like several days going, what did I see? Because I had a story of, well, she's this or she's that. And I gotta say, this thing is grinding me down, because I end up in this place where I'm like, well, wait a minute. I don't know anything about this kid. Like, yeah, I've got some pictures. I got some made up ideas. I knew her when I remember holding her when she was a baby. I know nothing about her, right? Worse than knowing nothing, I think I know something about it, right? And this is my sentiment here. It just brings up this thing of nothing is mine. Something like that. I don't know how to say this other than this profound sense that that nothing is mine. But then what is? So anyway, that's the space. If I can't even tell you what stories she uses to describe herself, how the hell can I say anything about her whatsoever? And she's my daughter, non-relationship. There you go.
Yeah. If nothing is yours, how do you even describe yourself?
I suppose. I mean, any way you want to. I mean.
Yeah. I mean, you said, if nothing is mine, what is?
Yeah, I just keep, I mean, it's weird. I keep getting this anything back. I'm not getting, sort of the pat answers, like, well, I should be hopeful for this. Maybe there'll be a thing. I'm not getting those sort of these sentimental vibes back on your question as a Cohen.
Yeah. I think, Michael, what you're having there actually really goes to the root of this question of form is exactly emptiness, and emptiness is exactly form. And, being stuck in dualistic thinking. Sandy, would you like to say something?
Yeah, thank you. What you said reminds me on two fronts. One is following your scientific approach on the atomic level. And I think right now, some people are talking about relating Buddhism to the quantum level.
To the
Quantum,
oh yeah,
maybe quantum level.
Yeah.
At the quantum level, the fundamental existence exists in two ways. One is a particle, which is form.
Yeah.
The other is a wave,
mhm,
which is empty, because wave is in the air. Only when you put your consciousness on the wave, then it becomes a particle. So it's like, yes, it is you cannot say anything, but once you put your consciousness to it, it becomes something concrete. So in itself can be two, depends on your, so the key is your consciousness. How I look at, like just now, I forgot the gentleman's name. How should he understand the daughter is depends on what consciousness you use to interpret. And at the same time, if you say you don't know her anything, at the same time, you know everything about her. So it's really, really how you put your consciousness. That's one end. And the other reminder is like, I remember I saw the video, Roshi talks about sanity and insanity. That really impressed me, because when he talked to our sanity voice, it turns out to be the insanity voice. And when he talks to our insanity voice, it's the sanity voice came out. So that's also another thing that reminds me when you talks about form is emptiness, emptiness is form. It's the same. He asks the same questions, but behind the sanity is insanity. So if you say it's
Yeah.
really depends on your.
Well,
Yeah,
these things are all
right.
dualistic descriptions of,
Yeah.
even if you say wave and particle, it's dualistic because you're comparing one to the other, and one is only known by its opposite. Or if you say sanity and insanity,
But it's the same electron. It's just that it's interchangeable, or even, just the way you look at it becomes different. So it's a matter of how you put your lens on the matter. Yeah. So that reminds me, when you say that is to learning, that came up in my mind that I want to share.
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
What is it that is not interchangeable?
Again, quoting from Roshi's learning is the triangle, the apex.
Okay.
That holds both. So ultimately, that is the ultimate reality that is at the same time both form and emptiness, emptiness and form. Is the apex.
Okay. Sounds good. Anybody else? I think part of this the sutra and part of what makes it hard for us is it's very, very difficult to say anything without saying it dualistically. Because even if you say apex, that's comparing to something, right? Not the apex. If you say form, you say emptiness, that's two different things that we think are opposites, or one comes out of the other, or one changes into the other. And I think with koans in particular, the idea is to make that jump, to express it, to show it that they're one. And is there one word that is both form and emptiness at the same time?
Can I also share something?
Yes, of course.
Because at that level, recently I also learned one thing very, very interesting, that there are dimensions in reality, like first dimension, second dimension, third dimension.
Mhm.
Right now, mostly we can only talk about 3 dimensions, but obviously they're the 4th dimension, 5th dimension. One characteristic is on the level of lower dimension, you cannot understand the higher dimension stuff.
Mhm.
So when you use word, it's definitely not even 3 dimension, maybe 2 dimension thing.
Mhm.
And whereas form is emptiness, emptiness form is a 4th dimension or higher kind of understanding.
Mhm.
So that's why it's so difficult to find something concrete at the 3-dimension level or below to explain something higher. It's just like you cannot use a picture to describe a person or meeting a person,
Mhm.
the experience of meeting a person. So it is, if we are always trying to find a word, find a picture, find a phrase to explain beyond emptiness is form is emptiness, then it is something, it's just like they also cite an example, asking an ant to understand what you're thinking.
Yeah. I have a friend who's quite the mathematics and physics buff, and we have these kind of conversations often. And he was mentioning this, well, the theory is that there's 11 dimensions, or there's 13, or there whatever. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, why wouldn't there be infinite dimensions?
Exactly. Exactly. Is that mathematically they can come up to 11, but that should be infinite. Is the ultimate reality, like the Buddha said, in Chinese we say 無上正等正覺, the all is, well, the ultimate reality is infinite dimension.
Yeah. So if you look at infinity, then there's no measurement anymore.
Exactly. That's why there's no words anymore. And I think to understand emptiness, its form is emptiness, is beyond description.
Right.
But you can feel it. Yeah.
Well, and this is Zen practice, is not to describe it, but to experience it. So, and in the expression of a koan, it's rare that you would say anything, but how would you? And also, I want to bring this back down from infinite cosmos and all that back down to me. Because Zen is about life, and it's about my life, your life, everyone's life. And so we can get kind of intellectually far away from our own lives by trying to, you know, quantify or describe some of these things. So if I'm obviously a form, right? Here I am. And I'm simultaneously empty. And I can't say I am form and emptiness, because that's saying too much.
I think the way you describe emptiness is using the form way of this. Emptiness is not form, definitely not form. But
No,
you are
emptiness is-
interpreting.
Well, if you believe Avalokiteshvara, emptiness is exactly form, and form is exactly emptiness. This is the
Not literally, not literally.
no, literally. Here, I'll show you. See, right there.
That's literally, it means it's limited by the words.
Well, I
But
think
anyway,
I think that he means it literally. It is exactly the same thing. So how are we to experience that? How are we to understand that? Well, we can't do it using our dualistic mind, because the second we do that, we instantly split everything apart into a million pieces that are all competing. So how do we express the oneness that he's saying it is?
yeah, you said exactly right, because in the non-dualistic mind, there's no how.
Is
How exists in the dualistic mind.
well, it could also be said, I think, that the dualistic mind is exactly the non-dualistic mind, and the non-dualistic mind is exactly the dualistic mind. Wouldn't that be the implication here?
Because you really emphasize on the exactly. And this is already a attachment to the word exactly. Exactly also means not exactly. If you use the form is form, emptiness is form. The word exactly has its emptiness element in my mind.
You're still splitting it into elements, though.
No, it's not. Anyway, I think I stop here.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Sandy, very much. Michael.
Yeah, quick reflection on this. So it is, I don't know what was going on that day. I don't know, actually, the teacher that, is this the Buddha that's citing this?
It's
Is that-
Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva.
So the initial early disciple of, like, day
No,
one?
no, Shariputra is the early disciple. Avalokiteshvara is sort of in the pantheon of bodhisattvas and Buddhas. And actually at the end of the sutra, Buddha comes in and says, oh, that was a great job, kind of, you know. But yeah, but anyway, are you questioning his authority?
I guess if the question, as I'm just trying to, if I heard, on some level, I guess I suppose I subtly prejudice, or that emptiness is somehow a more elevated, you know, idea in this, you know, Buddha mind business, and relative to form, right? So if I'm hearing this, then I'm basically freeing myself of any ranking of one of these precepts above the other, you know, that emptiness isn't somehow vaulted into some higher position relative to form or anything else, for that matter. That's my layman's version of what I think I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think you're onto it. I mean, form is exactly emptiness, and emptiness is exactly form.
Right.
So it's forcing us to like drop the dualism and try to express that. Thank you. Huawei, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Bruce. Yeah, I don't know why this time when you said that the emptiness is form, form is emptiness, just reminds me that the Buddha nature and the self nature. I don't know why I have this relate to that Buddha nature and self nature.
Buddha
And,
nature and self nature.
yeah, maybe Buddha nature is also self nature is Buddha nature. I don't know. Has
Wait,
that?
yeah.
mm,
Actually, it reminds me a bit of another koan, which is Mu,
mm,
where the monk says, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" And Joshu shouts, "Mu." And that's another one that solves the same problem. And do we have something, or is it some other way to see it? Because having is like still separate, right? There's me and I have something else, still dualistic.
yes. It
What-
also reminds me this Tuesday when, yeah, this Tuesday's Sangha meeting, the like seeking. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but just reminds me some like I'm seeking what, or maybe I'm already it, but I just don't know. Maybe after I don't know, just have that feeling. Maybe nothing will be changed, even if I got enlightened. I don't know, it's something.
Well, Avalokiteshvara clearly says that if you get this, it relieves all misfortune and pain. So how is that possible? And is it true? And what is the mechanism? What has to happen? This is our task as Zen students, right? And there's so many ways that we try to do it. We meditate and we chant and we do work service and we do big mind and we have discussions and we read sutras and we do everything we can think of, to try to get there. And there's another one in the service book. And by the way, before I forget this, what I'm reading from is the official Kanzeon Zen Center service book. I don't know if you can read that, okay? But this is on our website. You can download it. Okay. If you go to on the main menu on top where it says member info, and a little menu drops down, and there's one called Zen Resources. If you click there, you can download this service book, and you can read exactly what I'm reading, and plus a lot more that's in here. So anyway, back to form is emptiness and emptiness is form. How is that? Is that true? And is it true right here in my body? Because I don't feel empty. I feel full of a lot of feelings and thoughts and ideas and notions and convictions about things and things I like and things I don't like. I'm full, right? And yet that is also emptiness. Why is that? How can that be true? Because it feels like form, and I look like form. And yet I know intellectually, okay, everything's impermanent. Everything's constantly changing. I'm going to be here, then I'm going to be gone. I don't know what happens after that. My body pretty much never will leave the earth. And I mean, if I'm buried or cremated, whatever, everything that I'm made up of, all the atoms and molecules and all that, will still be somewhere on the earth. Okay. But it won't be me. It'll just be all my elements. I used to have the chart of the elements here that I would all the different basic elements. So they don't go away, but even those change, and so what maybe we should think about, what do we kind of know what form is, but what is emptiness? Anybody want to take a shot at that? Yeah, Jeannie.
So what I'm struck by is, can you hear me?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Is the right brain, left brain quality
Mhm.
of, like, say I'm skiing and I know that I'm going down a line of moguls and I know how that works.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing it, it's my right brain that is just taking me and flowing. I'm flowing where I need to go. And okay, this one didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, but that's okay. I'll go this way. And so there's I'm not thinking. There's entire emptiness because I'm just right here. Like every little nuance is right here. And the same is true for painting or cooking or hanging out with the dog. I can do it by either reading the reading the recipes,
Mhm.
or I can do it by smelling and tasting and engaging in my body and my mind. And it's the creative process is what it is. If I'm completely in my right brain, I still am mucking around with things,
Mhm.
but I'm also creating.
Yeah, no, I get that. And, there's a good book by, I don't have it in front of me here, but Shiba Yama, I believe, on Zen training, where he talks about samadhi. And samadhi is, sort of a state of being that generally we're talking about in meditation, this sort of calm, most of the dualistic thoughts are dropped and just kind of, being truly yourself there. And I think we all experience, samadhi. He talks about inward samadhi and outward samadhi, and what you're describing, when you're skiing or when you're very much absorbed in a thing that you're doing. This is what he talks about as outward samadhi. And many of us have experienced that. If you play sports, or if you paint, or if a painter sits down, on the sidewalk and sees a whole different city that he's painting than somebody who's just walking down the street glancing at the buildings, because his absorption is so much more concentrated. He's the type of samadhi that he's seeing the colors and shapes very, very clearly and detailed, even though his painting may end up being an abstract painting and not like a photograph. It's still that absorption is that feeling of an outward type of samadhi. Okay.
So
And
how is that different from emptiness?
let me get to that. And in my mind, okay. So samadhi is a state where things like emptiness can, I think, be perceived or apprehended in a way. And, like my example of the painter, in a way, his absorption has made him one with what he's painting and the paint and the canvas and all that kind of thing. But it's not so thoroughgoing, you might say, as the apprehension of form as emptiness and emptiness as form. It's close, it's on the way, it's kind of that feeling in my mind. Inward samadhi is, that kind of absorption that you feel meditating. Okay. But I think these things are practices that can lead to these kind of breakthroughs of seeing the oneness, that form is exactly emptiness and emptiness is exactly form. And I think that kind of realization or awakening is quite a bit more thorough and deeper. But while you're skiing, yeah, you've dropped your dualistic mind. You're just reacting. You're there, present, completely present with the snow and the skis and your balance and the whole thing. And I have been a musician a number of years, and I can tell kind of a story of how I feel this when I'm performing. And if I'm on stage and I'm just absorbed in the playing, things go pretty smooth. But if I look out in the crowd and I think, oh, they like us or they don't like us, I'll hit a bad note immediately. And I'd have to catch up and get back into it. And so that kind of outward samadhi can be broken quite easily. And yet it's really great that you're aware of it, because this is something to be aware of when we're washing the dishes or when we're walking down the street. And can we maintain that? Because like I said earlier, it's about life. It's about my life. And how can I open myself so fully to it? Can I be so fully open to my life that there's no question that form is emptiness and emptiness is form? I don't even see the difference at all. It's all one.
And that's what practice is.
That's what practice is. And this is why, too, even, in Dogen and other literature, they say, well, fully realized Buddhas keep meditating. Well, why would they do that? They're fully realized Buddhas, because that's what Buddhas do. Right? It's like there's never ending practice. There's infinite universes. There's infinite everything. And so we continue to practice even beyond. Dogen says there's realization beyond realization. Okay. But all of us, I feel like I'm Shariputra, right? I'm still stuck in my dualistic thinking. When I ask Roshi a question, it's always like, well, is this better than that? And immediately it's like I'm splitting the world in pieces, and I'm not really living as one. So I don't want to live as emptiness. I don't want to live only as form. Why would I split myself or try to become one from the other, when actually the actual reality is it's never split in the first place. Only I'm splitting it in my mind. Okay, I take full responsibility. I'm the one that's tearing the world into a million pieces and comparing them all. Right. And there is where all the conflict comes up. And there is where this is the misfortune and pain that he's talking about relieving, is if I split the world into a million competing pieces and judge it all as good or bad or otherwise, or neutral, however, in dualistic thinking, I'm bringing samsara, the world of pain and suffering, onto my own shoulders. So, how do I drop that? Right? That's the question of practice.
Well, isn't it also just that we as human beings, we live with pain, we live with suffering, but there's still that creative or right brain, or whatever you want to call it, they can happen at the same time. So it's not that form or not that pain and suffering goes away.
No. It's
that
all
I can hang out with both. Is that I can be suffering at the same time that I can be spacious. And it doesn't make it go away. I'm not like without pain.
right.
But it's that I'm not so wrapped up in like, oh, fuck, I'm having pain.
Yeah. And maybe further is, and I think we maybe should make a distinction here between like pain, like when you stub your toe or hit your thumb with a hammer, and the mental anguish that we go through, the emotional pain and suffering that is mainly due to our thoughts. Now, if I hit my thumb's going to hurt, But if I start blaming myself or somebody else for it, you know, that is adding this sort of dualistic suffering on top of it. And no amount of dualistic thought is going to make the actual pain in my thought in my thumb go away. But it's all happening. It's all one thing, and it's all happening at once. And it's just that we split it up, you know, which makes it worse. So, you know, I think when Avalokiteshvara says, you know, completely relieving misfortune and pain, he's not implying that you'll never hit your thumb with a hammer. Okay, is that good, Jeannie?
Sure.
Yeah. Ruth, did you have?
Yeah, I have nothing to add, but I'm going to talk anyway. And I came in late, and I'm already like my brain is fried. And it's a question, and I'm not talking about emptiness, so I'm kind of taking it back. I guess I'm wondering really what it is we're talking about when we talk about form. I mean, are we talking about sort of rondo form for a composer? Are we talking about a cake form? Are we talking about the human form? Because you talked about yourself, and you know, you're just sort of an agglomeration of elements, and they will survive after your death and in the form of elements. And so I'm wondering, is one's understanding of form that which is in some way permanent? And is that in contradistinction to something that is impermanent, such as, I mean, I don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Excellent question. Thank you so much for asking that. Because we were kind of focused on emptiness, but let's focus on form for a minute. And actually, if I could go just a little bit further in the Heart Sutra, which I highly recommend you guys download and read the whole thing. And, you know, maybe down the road, we can talk about it again. But right after he says form is exactly emptiness and emptiness is exactly form, he says sensation, conception, discrimination, and awareness are likewise like this. He says, "Oh, Shariputra, all dharmas are forms of emptiness." So you could say that everything that could possibly exist or not exist is form. Does that make it better? Now, what we see in our world, you know, what we call the apparent reality, right? Like if I hold up this glass, we all know it's a glass, there's water in it, hopefully. And, you know, the glass is form and the water is form. It's a physical form, okay? It's everything that's a physical kind of thing that we see or touch or smell or taste is, you know, a form, okay? But he also says, you know, even our thoughts, our ideas, our feelings, those are also forms. Okay. And that it's all empty. And it's empty because it's impermanent. It has no permanent to it. So even though I said, you know, all the chemicals in my body will stay on the earth, well, yeah, until the earth's gone, you know, and even elements can break down, and even atoms are made up of subatomic particles, and like Sandy pointed out, subatomic particles can only sort of be perceived as particles or waves, so we're not really even sure what they are, and maybe there's something even smaller than that. And so but a thing has no enduring permanent essence, or I can't think of the word, but if you get what I say. And so therefore it's empty. Okay.
Say that again. A thing has no permanent
sort of essence.
And that makes it empty?
Well, in the Buddhist sense.
So, I mean, everything we do is form. A sentence has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Does
Yeah.
that is it, what do you mean by saying it's empty? I mean,
Well, I could say a sentence, if you read a printed sentence, you could say that it has a certain meaning if you understand that language, but if if you don't, it means nothing. But you could also say it's just ink on paper. So what is it?
well,
It
is,
has no permanent, it has no substance. There's no permanent substance of
well,
anything.
well, you know, a Beethoven symphony has no permanent substance.
That's right. It's empty.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. And I've listened to a lot of Beethoven. I love Beethoven, and I get what you're saying, that in my mind, it has a great effect on my emotions, on my thoughts, on my feelings, on my musical sense. I know that some of the history of Beethoven, these are all, but this is all impermanent stuff. Beethoven was, was not around forever prior, and he's not around forever from now on. You know what I'm saying? It comes and goes. Everything comes and goes. We live in a liquid, everything is liquid.
So then you're not talking about like structure. You're talking about something different than structure.
Well, sort of structure, but no structures actually stay a structure. Like the classic example is they, in Buddhist lore, is somebody builds a cart, and you look at it and it's got wheels and walls around it and a harness for the oxen and this kind of thing, right? And you say, well, that's a cart. But if you take the wheels off and you take, and you see that it's made out of wood, and wood used to be a tree, and that tree was a seed, and it fell from another tree. And, if you start to examine the karmic flow of things, the cause and effect flow of things, you realize that the cart is just a name I gave to a manifestation in form that we've given a name to. But before there were humans, would they call it a cart? Everything's liquid.
So forget about language, which obviously you can't do. You have this construct, this thing with things, and you can have a cart that's physically in existence without calling it a cart.
Yeah.
Are you talking about?
It's still temporary.
Are you talking about language? Are you talking about physical constructs?
I'm talking about the actual physical world. It's completely liquid and just manifests in all sorts of different forms.
Yes, so
there's nothing permanent in the universe. And so that's, in a Buddhist sense, we call that empty.
how can that be empty? It's everything.
Well, if you see it in its totality, it is everything. And yet it's empty of meaning, you might say. Because meaning.
That's something else entirely.
Okay.
Making meaning of it is another exercise.
Yeah. Even the universe, we know it never is the same from one second to the next.
Right.
So
That I get.
Okay. And apparently there was a big bang, and who knows what happened before that. I know this is tough to talk about because it's a deep subject, I guess.
Well, I think it's dangerous to talk about.
It's dangerous? In what way?
Because for me it is, because that's why I don't read philosophy. You have to meet a discipline with some understanding of the terms. Like, what are the terms of this conversation? We're speaking English, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I have to understand the English language to have a conversation with you, at least a meaningful conversation. I could read your body language and get some idea, but for me, it's like on some level, it's like Sandy speaking Chinese and expecting me to understand it. Or saying, okay, well, and therefore blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
at least for me.
Yes.
So are we talking Chinese or are we talking English? That's kind of where the way I approach this, because I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know what these words are supposed to, and Zen is riddled with riddles. You know, is that what we're doing? Or are we?
Yeah, I think so. In a way, I mean, you're right. It is riddled with riddles. And I think what they're trying to point out here is underneath all the riddles, underneath all the description, underneath all the language and concepts and ideas, what is the true nature of reality? Thank you. Michael, you want to go again?
Sure. I just want to share that having listened to the satsang or whatever you're calling this, the effect for me is like a possibility of I feel more at peace with this the thing that I came with, which was the relationship with my daughter and the topic that was on my heart, at least. You know, there's a way in which I guess there's like a haunting when you don't have somebody that's engaging with you, or you're not in that relationship. It's like you've lost them or they've died or something. And I'm taking this inward with that I guess a desire for some healing about that relationship and how I could be more at one with that. And I do feel like you've contributed to that, and I just want to thank you for it. So,
Well, thank you for that, Michael. I know our conversation's been a little esoteric, maybe, but
not for me, it hasn't.
good, because I mean, look, come over here for a second. Here's my daughter.
Yeah.
You know, do I see my daughter as form or emptiness? Or is she just,
Look at that face.
just this one thing? Is she just one thing, you know?
I'm a person, not an object,
There
dude.
you go. There you go. Boom.
You know, so I mean, one of the problems I think in Zen for everyone, I think, is you know, we want to pin things down. You know, we want to, and even the whole thrust of like, okay, if I even enlightenment is like, oh, I'll finally have it pinned down, right? And what if there's not only nothing to pin down, that even that can't be pinned down? Then what are we left with? Well, we're left with, I get up in the morning and give my daughter some breakfast, take her to school, I wash the dishes, I live my life. And I live my life in gratitude that I have a life, and that I know all you guys, and that there's, because that's the form, the relationship, you know, is also a form. And if I just think it's empty, then that's very cold and very kind of mechanical in a way. And, you know, but the reality is that there's no permanent substance. And so in a way, it makes me grateful that there's temporary substance. Okay. And that I'm part of it, and it's my life, and here we are, and I'm going to do the best I can, because it's fleeting. And so I don't want to get stuck in form. I don't want to get stuck in emptiness. And I also don't want to get stuck in trying to sort out the difference in this dualistic way. And we spend so much time and energy trying to sort out a world that is actually not sortable, instead of just living it. And so, Michael, I would just say, do what you do, man. Do it, you know, get to know your daughter, or do whatever, you know, whatever it takes in front of you, and try not to try to sort it too much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything? It's we burned that hour up pretty fast. It felt like. Hi, Paul. Well, I always like to hear from you.
Make that happen. There, how's that? Is the mic okay?
It's okay, and your golden throat comes through perfectly.
Thanks. I was noticing right at the outset that these words, form and emptiness,
Mm-hmm.
well, I have a lot of baggage attached to both of those. A lot of definition, meaning, concept to carry around. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
well, the truth is ungraspable, right? So form, or any understanding, can't happen of form or emptiness for me. So if I take those two words, those two ideas, and all the baggage that goes with it, and throw it away, what am I left with?
What do you love? Tell me. What do you love?
Well, nothing has changed except my grasping.
That's right.
It's all still there.
I'm
And-
still too hot, or too cold, or hungry, or
But some of my misery and suffering has gone because that whole conundrum was really starting to piss me off. You know what I mean?
yeah, and that's exactly what they're pointing to in this sutra. And it's not easy, you know, and yet in a way so simple and so right in front of us, you know. And one of the other ones in here, it says that sometimes you don't see it even though you walk on it.
Mhm.
You know?
And so form and emptiness are identical in that neither one of them is real. They're both ideas, notions, words for us. And when I let go of them, nothing changes. They're still, whatever that is still true, but I can't grasp it.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, as Zen students, sometimes we have to have these kind of discussions, and we have to like get into these things and try to wrestle with them and stuff. Because if we don't, then sometimes we can go through life without even doing that, you know.
Mhm.
Like I think
Sometimes you have
it's good in practice. Is good just to wrestle, right? And test
Sometimes you
yourself
have to suffer enough, right?
and double check yourself, and don't take things for granted, and just like get in there and try to feel it and experience it and wonder what it is, and feel the feeling of wonder, you know, and wondering and all those things. And this is I think can be the joy of practice, and doesn't have to be drudgery. It doesn't have to be, oh God, I got to go sit on my cushion again and fucking do this koan, you know. It's like, take joy in the skiing and the meditating and the eating and the, you know, and just be so glad and so fortunate that we're human beings alive and can do this.
I
And
agree.
share.
Well said.
All right, well, I better quit while I'm ahead. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and I appreciate it so much. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everybody. Stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, fun.